Hey guys, Michael from Aussie 4J Adapters here. So we got a Series 4 zd30 manual in for a 4JJ1 engine conversion. So thought I'd just make a bit of a video. There's a lot going on in the engine bay right now. It's already got a front mount. There's a lot of wiring, stuff to be cleaned up. I thought I'd just make a bit of a video doing the conversion, since we've done a few and there's a few people always asking questions about how you do this and how you do that. So I thought I'd make a bit of a video. So I'll start with getting this old ZD out, clean up the engine bay a bit, and we'll go from there. Alright, so next day, the engine is out. So I'm just going to show, so we've got to get the bell housing off. Obviously ZD bell housing is no longer going to be used. Also, front cover of the gearbox. So there's 9 bolts around the front of that. We've got to get that off and get it machined down. Just that front snout that the throwout bearing runs on. We've got to get 1mm machined off that for the throwout bearing for the 4J, because we're going to keep the 4J with all the clutch plate assembly, fork, all that stuff will get used again. So got to remove that. Also clutch line. So straight off the master, you can remove the line that goes along the firewall all the way down with the slave. All that'll get deleted, because we sell a kit that's a new braided line the whole way around, and you can use the factory 4J slave. You can also use an earlier Jackaroo one. It doesn't have the little dampener thing on it, so it's a lot easier to bleed up. So let's get this stuff off. Alright, so I got the bell housing off, and I've got all the bolts out of this front cover on the gearbox. Just a reminder to, if you haven't drained the oil out of the gearbox already, put a drain tray under it, because these bolt holes will actually drain all the oil out as you're taking them out, as they obviously go right through into the sort of sump of the gearbox itself. So that's just a reminder. Alright, let's get this thing off. So once you get the cover off, you can see this ball that the old clutch fork used to go on, so that'll unscrew, and then you just got to cut the last little bit off flush with the bolt holes, like the height of those bolt holes, just to clear the adapter. Have the shaft machined down 1mm, fit the 4J throwout bearing, and also just replace the seal in the back. Our adapter kit comes with a new seal, or if you buy like the whole conversion kit, it will come with a whole new plate, genuine one that's already machined and everything, just ready to bolt straight on there. And there you go, so that's machined, 1mm taken off there. Also cut that ball off just level with the next bolt hole. Clears the adapter, so it's right for the new throwout bearing. Also got the new seal on there, and then just a good clean up. This light sort of coat of just silicone, gasket silicone, and cleaned up all the front of the gearbox. Got all the old silicone off there, all the oil cleaned up, and it's ready to go back on. So now it's all on. It will be supplied with these button head bolts with all the adapters. That's just for clearance. These are a 12.9 grade bolt, so the torque settings are about 40 Newton meters. So that's all bolted on, ready to go, changed over, machined up. So we're pretty much ready for the adapter now. Alright, so we've got the adapter here. Just before it goes in the gearbox, I thought I might show you how the clutch fork assembly goes together. So I've had a few people ask about that. So you got your clutch fork bracket. It's got 3 bolt holes. The bolts will be supplied with an adapter, so you got some new bolts, because sometimes the factory bolts will snap off and you try and get them out to get the bracket off. I've had that happen a few times. So I'm just going to put 2 bolts in for now. Alright, so clutch fork. Now this is not, this is a factory one. It doesn't have the labels. Sometimes they'll have an F and an R, so front and rear. If you put this in backwards, you're going to have all sorts of problems, and it's going to be coming back apart. So you can see the shape of it. This bit will be facing up, so facing out towards you. Now, as this goes together, if it's on the, obviously this will be bolted to your gearbox. you got your throwout bearing that will have to go on there and then slide over the input shaft and onto that front cover of the gearbox that we just machined. Then you put your pin in. There's a machine step, so this will be on the bottom, the machine step to stop the bolt from spinning. Then you got a washer and then R-clip. I normally put the R-clip in from this side, so that way if you ever got to get the gearbox out, you can get something up through the inspection hole on the bottom, pop the R-clip out, the pin will drop out, and you can separate the gearbox and the engine. Because this is a pull type clutch, once you bolt the engine to the gearbox, this will go and clip up into the pressure plate. On the inside of the pressure plate there's a circlip that then goes into this groove. It stops this from coming out, so that when the slave pushes on the fork, it pulls the clutch plate, releases, and then clutch on and off. So that's another thing to watch out for when you're putting the engine in, like bolting the engine to the gearbox and the adapter. You have to watch out that the input shaft doesn't push the circlip off the inside of the pressure plate. I've had that happen a couple of times. People will put it all together and this won't clip in because the circlip's fallen off inside the pressure plate. So you can sometimes hear it. You'll hear like a metallic something dropping inside. Then if that happens, best thing is slide the engine back forward, pull the pressure plate out, and just make sure that that circlip has not fallen off, because you don't want to get all this together and then go to clip the circlip in. And there's no circlip there to clip onto, you just need to pull it all back apart. So I thought I'd just show you that quickly before it all goes together. Obviously, you want some grease on this as it goes, as you assemble it all. Alright, so adapter's all on, bell housing's all on. You can see just here 4J starter motor's on the other side. We'll have to just clearance that a little bit, just massage that in. I'll use just a hammer and a bit of wood, just get the right shape around here so that it's not gonna hit. You can go up and down, and that way you know that's not gonna rub and vibrate and annoy the shit out of you. So torque settings, these Allen key bolts are 87 Newton meters, actually 117 Newton meters, sorry, it's about 87 foot-pounds. Now these bolts, I don't know, they're supposed to be rated at 40. I've done those ones up to 55, they feel pretty good. Just preference really, just didn't feel tight enough for me, but yeah, so that's all on. Just waiting for the new clutch to come so I can get the throwout bearing, then I will assemble that, all the clutch fork assembly. So just going to remove this clutch line, slave cylinder, get ready for the brand new full braided line that we supply with the slave. Probably not going to worry about that until the engine goes in. This is a ZD, so we'll be getting our bolt-in engine mount, so I'll show you how that goes in a minute. That'll be bracket bolts on, and keeps the factory 4J rubber mount. They have like a steel retainer on the bottom as well, so you have to keep that. Now let's talk spigot bearings for a second. So factory 4J spigot bearing, this is one supplied in the kit. You will need to replace that. The input shaft on the manual box for the D-Max is actually bigger internal than the D-Max one, than the Patrol one, sorry. So if you keep that one, the shaft's not really going to be supported, it's just going to be flopping around in there. So we supply one in the kit. Every adapter we sell, every kit we sell, make sure you swap that. Alright, so as you just seen, adapter's on, bell housing's on, got a new throwout bearing and our clutch. It's all assembled, pretty much ready to go for the motor. So I thought I'd show you our engine mounts. So this is a bolt-in kit. So the 4Js have this steel like bucket retainer that the engine mount actually sits inside. So this is the driver's side one. It actually bolts underneath. Now you do need to trim, so you have to sit it on there. You got to trim just the corner off this and a little piece off here. You can actually see so that this will sit on there. nicely. Also, there's another hole just here. You actually have to just drill that out, and it'll bolt on from underneath, nuts and bolts. And then this side is a bit less modification. So it just sits on top. The 2 bolts drop in from the top. Your nuts will go in from underneath. Same thing. So this sits on here. So you'll just have to trim off a tiny little piece just off here. You'll see where it touches. And that's pretty much it. So that's pretty straightforward. It keeps the factory 4J engine mount and bolts onto the ZD chassis mounts. And just like that, mounts are on. So you can sort of see how much you got to trim back. It's got nuts underneath. Sits on. So obviously you probably leave them a little bit loose so it can twist a little bit for sit the engine in, make it a bit easier to line the bolts up. And the other side doesn't need much, only just a little piece off the top of that. And you get the same thing. So the engine's ready to drop in. Depending on what cross member you got, they will need to come forward, so that slot the holes about 10mm, bring the gearbox forward for the bolt-in mounts. That also gives you a bit more firewall clearance as they sit pretty far back, so the sump will clear the diff. Yeah, so pretty straightforward, and it's pretty much ready to swing the motor in there. So, as you've just seen, the engine went in. We've actually missed a few days of filming, just got carried away and started smashing some stuff out. But pretty much, engine's in there, just bolted down. So it's got power steering fitting, which is just here. So that's one that we sell, so it actually just bolts straight on. It's got an AN fitting, hydraulic hose. Everything comes along, just goes straight onto the steering box. Pretty easy. So power steering, that was sorted. Also mounted the D-Max reservoir just here, which the hose off the engine's right here. It's on a bracket, so that went straight on, easy. What else we got? So we got, this has got a front mount cooler, so this is actually the intake pipe off a newer D-Max, 16 I think, just forward facing, so it can go down to the intercooler that was already there. Fan shroud, this is a zd30 CRD shroud that was already on there. We've just had to modify a little bit of stuff over this side, heat it up and bend it out a bit to clear the fan, so it's still going to run an engine fan. Radiator hoses, VN Commodore. I had to chop it there obviously because that water sensor was already in it, but they're a bit long. You can chop the ends off them, but it's kind of the right shape. So heater hoses are on. What else we got? We've got the ECU mounted over here. Sort of wasn't many places to put it because there's a lot of stuff in this engine bay already, so mounted it here, and then just got to have a little tag made up for it, and bends up easy enough to get to your brakes and brake fluid. And then obviously I had to make all battery cables because the main battery's on this side and it's custom car, so I didn't want to change the side. It's already got heaps of wiring in it, so run the 2 battery cables across to this one, keep the main battery on this side. A little bit extra stuff on the firewall, but it is what it is. Fuel lines are also run along the firewall. We've got a Goss inline pump mounted down here on the chassis rail. That's the factory Isuzu D-Max fuel filter. Just mounted that there. Nice big filter, easy to get to, sort of out of the way. There wasn't much room in the engine bay, we were running out of room, so this is sort of the best spot for it, and it's exactly where it is on the D-Max anyway. So just got to make a crossover pipe. Obviously turbo's on the other side now, so you have to fab something up to get into the airbox there. And then we'll start on some wiring. So this is our standalone wiring harness. I've got it in, so it's got its own relays here. So we've got an AC compressor relay, a fuel pump relay, start relay, and the ECU relay, which is all in the loom. So we've got our power here. This stuff is already there. So it comes across and it's got this plug. So that plugs straight into your engine harness that comes out of the car. So that plug, and that one's for the starter motor. There's this other plug here that is for an auto, so this is obviously a manual. There's also another patch loom that plugs in. If you've got the D-Max 4-speed auto, this will run the auto. So it'll plug in there to the engine harness. Then it also has another loom that goes onto the transmission computer, the factory D-Max one. So it runs across sort of wherever you can put it. And it has this wire here. So this is the AC trigger. So on a patrol, you can cut the green wire out of the pressure switch, join this in. That's your aircon sorted out once you get it all gassed up. The relay's there for it. It runs in through the engine harness. That's all sorted out. It also has the MAF sensor. So obviously that's plugged in there. That's all in that harness. And it comes across here. It's got your ECU plug on it. The other plug's obviously on your engine harness. So that plug, then it goes into the firewall through there. Just need to neaten that up. We come inside and we've got our wires here. So we've got throttle pedal plug straight on, that's done. Got an OBD plug, that's already all on there. There is a light here, so that's actually the engine light. Obviously we've had to wire in a light because it needs a circuit for it to run. So that you can then either mount this somewhere, swap it out for another plug, or wire it into your dash to use your factory engine light, whatever you like. And then there's these wires here. So we've got a ignition wire, which is this green one, just there, tangled. So ignition and start, that is all you need, and the thing will run. So then we've got a few other outputs here. So we've got a tack signal, vehicle speed signal, alternator light, oil light, and a coolant temp sensor. That all comes out of the ECU. So you can hook that into your dash, hook it into some aftermarket gauges, or you can just plug in like a JRP dash straight into the OBD, and most of your stuff will work. And then so in the fuse block over there, the wire comes out. It's got the fuel pump wire already on it, which I've already run along here and down underneath. Comes to here, so it's got your power on it. All you gotta do is obviously put an earth. So this is grounded on the chassis there. So the wire's already there. It's got 4 meters length on it, so it'll reach pretty much wherever you put the pump. So that is the wiring. It's literally plug and play. Only a couple of wires there for your outputs for whatever you want to do. You can use them, you don't have to use them, but everything there is in the harness, as well as if you want to use the D-Max 4-speed auto, it'll also run the 4-speed auto. So you also have this is like the transmission harness off the ZD. So you got your stuff for the transfer case, forward drive and the speedo and the reverse lights. So you have to cut that off your engine harness. It's got these two plugs. They're up on the driver's side in that little fuse box. These two, black plug and the silver grey plug. So in that there will be this wire. That is, what is it? That's the alternator light, sorry. So it's white with a green trace. That'll go into our loom on the brown with a white trace wire. And then also on the grey plug as well, yellow with a blue trace, that is the oil pressure light. So that will go onto the white wire on our loom. So that'll get you those two lights sorted out on the dash. Alright, so I've got that transmission harness back in, the factory Nissan one. So that plugs back in just on the corner under that cover. I'll put it back on. And I've actually spliced in the alternator light and the oil light just into the loom there, saves running them back inside. Now inside, we've got our two ignition wires, and that's all that's hooked up. So that is enough. Start it up. Okay. So this one being a CRD, I've had to get onto Canberra Solutions. They actually do a one of these Canberra modules for the 4J into a CRD patrol. So that's pretty handy because you can't get the tacho, the engine light, or the water temp sender to work on the dash. Like just by hooking up another wire, it's just not in there. It actually runs through the Nissan ECU. So Nigel was really helpful. I called him up, had it in 2 days. So obviously these plugs up here that used to go to the ECU no longer being used. So we got our what is it? The can high is the green wire, can low is the white. So white with a red trace, green with a black trace. Same colours on the Canberra module. So you just hook the two wires together, and then in the, I've just got these sitting in here for now because I was just making sure it worked. In the OBD plug, so they're just on top of each other here. So I've got a blue and a green with no trace on it. So the, what are we? The yellow one is the can low, and the blue one is the can high. So you can just splice these in up here somewhere, and they all go in the same connection, so it doesn't actually run through it. Join them all in the same connection, and then it's just got a power which has to be hooked into the ignition, and an earth on the black. And it's also got this extra wire on the Canberra module, is for a smart alternator, which obviously we're not using that. So literally just hook that in. The engine light works through the dash, tacho works through the dash, the water temp sensor, that works through the dash. It all seems to be phased in pretty correctly. It's pretty spot on. So then for our other wires that coming out of our loom here, we've got, let's see if I see it. Right, so we've got our green and white trace, 12-volt ignition, which is already hooked up here. We've got our blue with the yellow trace, which is the start. We've got that hooked in, the ignition, so that's all done. Now, tack signal, that's in here. So there's black wire with a pink trace. We've got our vehicle speed signal, which is the black with a yellow trace. Alternator light, which we've already hooked up back out in the engine bay, so that brown with the white. And our coolant temp, so which coolant temp's yellow with the black, and the oil light, which we've already hooked up out in the engine bay. So I'm not going to really use any of these now that everything's all hooked up, the CAN bus stuff. But it's all there for your, you know, if you've got a DI Patrol, Land Cruiser, anything else you're putting in. This stuff all comes from the ECU. Pretty easy to wire up. Now this one's got cruise control, so I need to get the vehicle speed into the 4J ECU, which at the moment it doesn't have. So what I'm going to do is I've got a GQ speed sensor. Now what you can do is if you get the factory 4J one, you can unscrew the plug off it and it'll actually screw straight onto a GQ one. So I'm going to put this in the transfer case with the 4J plug on. Then I'll plug in the plug off the 4J engine harness that went to the transmission before, which I have just here. Okay, this plug here, 3-wire plug. So I'm going to plug that onto the onto that sender. So then I'll have vehicle speed into the 4J ECU, which means I'm then going to lose vehicle speed on the dash. So I'm going to get a decoder digital to then run the dash from the 4J ECU. So that way I have both speed signals. So that way I can then get the cruise control to work back through the 4J ECU. So that's just a way that you can actually do that. It's a little bit more stuffing around, but you can actually get it to work. And one other thing to consider is your pedal bracket. So obviously fly-by-wire with your D-Max pedal. So you've got to mount that. This is like the factory, this is a CRD one, so it's slightly different to like an early model, Series 1, 2 and 3 GU, and the early Series 4. So all I've done is just trimmed it on an angle, welded a flat plate on with a bit of a bracket on the back, welded some bolts in for studs, and it just drops on like that. Pretty straightforward. I believe the earlier patrols, like the early GUs, are slightly different. Just this bracket, but still only took 15 minutes. And then as I was saying earlier, so I put a GQ speed sensor in the transfer case, which is the silver bit, and then the brown part is actually the it's like a shaft drive to a electronic speed sensor off the D-Max box. That way the factory D-Max plug off the engine harness plugs straight onto it. So that way it's got speed signal up to the 4J ECU, and then just use the decoder digital to get the dash cluster to work for the speedo. All that purpose is just for the cruise control. The engine, or the car that the engine came out of, already had a aftermarket cruise control, so we're going to make that work, which is just pretty simple. Like a throttle controller, just plugs in through the throttle pedal. It's got a speed sensor wire, power, and then obviously just wiring up the clutch and the brake switch to deactivate it. Don't have to do that, that's purely just for the cruise control. You can do as we did before, how we took the loom off the engine, trimmed that loom up, plugged it back in, all the dash speedo worked. And then yep, I've got the cam barrel module mounted up there, just behind this steel plate where the old ECU went, and stole the CAN bus wires out of here for the Nissan, CAN bus wires out of the OBD port for the 4J. That's all linked together, and then because these CAN buses are now linked, it has two OBDs. So it has the OBD on our standalone loom, as well as the factory Nissan OBD still works, because the CAN buses are linked together now. So yeah, it's getting there. Okay, so there's no glow plug control, like relay, in the wiring harness. It's there as like an option. These things will start up fine without glow plugs, just if you're in the colder weather. Right at the ECU, there is a wire hanging out black with a green trace. So that is a earth trigger for the glow plugs. So it's on a timer through the ECU, so it comes on for about 3 or 4 seconds and shuts off when the ignition's cycled. So for this one on the Patrol, I've got the factory glow plug relay down there. It's a 100 amp relay. It's got a circuit breaker. So what I've done is taken this wire, this earth, run it down to there to trigger that relay, and then they actually come out inside this fuse box on the driver's side. There's a red plug there, that's the glow plug. So I've cut the wire and the plug off the ZD engine harness. Then I've stripped it back and run it into this wire here that then runs across, and you'll have this plug on your engine harness. That is the glow plug straight to the rail. So I've just run the wire across, made a plug up, plugged it in. So that's that sorted. You don't have to use it, but if you know, down the cold weather or taking a few trips to the snow, might pay just to wire that up. And that's a wrap for this one. So she's all done now. Tied everything back into the intercooler that was already here. Obviously crossover pipe back into the airbox. We used a newer model. This is off a 18 model, I think. It's just forward facing factory plastic little intake pipe there with the factory, what's that, the manifold pressure sensor. Just had to remake a little bracket at the back here, so that helps with the front mount, because the other ones skew with backwards and just doesn't work properly. So we got our aircon hose kits on here. This was a dual system one, so it's slightly different, but we have the aircon kit available. So everything else sorted up. We used the factory zd30 shroud, factory 4J engine fan. The only thing I had to do is just to heat it up the corner, just here. Just bent the corner out for a bit of clearance, so that'll fit nice. Still got factory turbo, all that stuff. Computer's mounted here. It's actually on a bit of a hinge, so you can still get to your brake fluid, everything nice. The other thing is the exhaust. So running obviously it's on the other side, so I had to come out of there at 2.5 and step it up to 3, just past the oil filter there, and then comes down underneath. Got a V-band, and then it ties back in to the original exhaust, just there at the cross member. So everything is working now on the dash. We had to use that cam barrel module to get the tacho and the engine light and everything to work. That also got the water temp working, and then a decoder digital for the speedo, just because we got the we used the GQ sensor running through the 4J computer for the cruise control stuff. If you do it the other way, where you just unpatch sort of your loom off the Nissan motor, put the transmission harness back in, you don't need the decoder digital for the speedo, but then you will still need that for the tacho if it's not a CRD. So everything's working. We've done a couple 100 Ks in it now, and it's all ready to go back to its owner. So that's one of our drive in drive out conversions. Had the car for about 6 weeks. Yeah, it's all turned out pretty nice. It drives really good. It's going to do a bit of towing, so the 4J will, a bit of down low torque will definitely love that. For any any parts or conversions, just hit us up, aussie4jadapters.com, or Facebook page aussie4jadapters. Get on there and send us an email with any inquiries. We'll get back to you pretty quick. Cheers.